Most CEOs I know are exhausted. Many of them tell me that at times they feel like they're running on a hamster wheel. These are hardworking, capable founders doing real work and yet feeling like they're getting nowhere. The problem, though, is not in the effort. The problem that's actually holding back their businesses, is the jobs that they are holding on to for dear life. I see them participating in every meeting, approving things that should not even need their approval, firefighting problems that, well, honestly, should have never even reached their desk. And the worst part is that the actual work of being a founder, of being a CEO, the work that only they can do, is getting ignored in all of this. So let me walk you through the only four jobs a CEO should be focusing on. And I promise you that until you actually get these four right, your business cannot grow past where it is today. You may even actually know some of these, but number three is not what you would actually expect to see on this list, nor is it something that is taught in any business school. And yet, it is the most critical part of building a successful business. One that took me years to learn, but has been at the cornerstone of every successful business I have built over the last 20 years. My name is Konstantin, and I've spent 20 years working with founders and executive teams across 4 continents and across over 100 companies. I've been inside scaling companies, struggling companies, and companies that looked like they were flying, but were actually quietly falling apart underneath. And the single most common pattern I see in all of them is this: the CEO is doing everyone else's job. Not because they actually choose to do so, but because the business was built in a way that made it all but inevitable. As a result, what feels like dedication, what feels like staying on top of things, is actually the thing holding the whole company back. So, to start us off, I want to ask you a question that I ask every founder I work with in the first session. If you disappeared tomorrow, what would happen to the business? Not if you took a holiday and checked Slack and email twice a day. I mean, actually disappeared, fell off the face of the earth. Phone off, unavailable, gone. Would the business still run? Now, most founders go quiet when I ask that, because the honest answer is no, and they already know it. But here is where most people actually misread the problem. They assume that the business would stop because the team is not good enough, or the product is too complicated, or no one else understands the customers the way they do. That, though, is almost never the case. The reason the business stops without you is simpler, way simpler than that. The business is not running on a system. It is running on you, your decisions, your judgment, your presence in every room. You are the system. You have just never had to see it from the outside before. Now, when I say build the system, I do not mean write a 200-page operations manual that no one's ever going to read. I mean something much, much more practical than that. Every process that lives in your head needs to live somewhere else. Sales process, client onboarding, delivery, hiring, communication standards, and more. All of it needs to be written down in a way that someone else can follow through on, without calling on you. And I know the objection here. You do not have the time to document everything. It's simpler to do it yourself. But I would push back on that directly. You do not have the time not to do this, because every hour spent improvising the process that you have already run 20 times is an hour you are borrowing from somewhere else in the business. And that debt compounds. That debt is what is holding you back. Here is what most people miss about this, though. The system is not the thing that actually ties you to the business. The system is the thing that actually sets you free from the business. Because the moment a process lives in a document instead of in your head, it becomes something you can hand over to the right person and trust that it will get done to your standard. Without that, though, everything else I'm about to say is just theory. So here's the next question I want you to consider. How do you actually know your business is doing well right now, today? Not the version that you actually present to investors. I mean, on a regular Tuesday morning, when you open up your laptop, what tells you things are on track? For most of the founders I talk to, the honest answer is things feel okay. Revenue seems fine, the team seems to be moving forward, nothing's on fire, and as long as that is true, they assume things are working. That, though, is not management. That is hope. And hope doesn't scale a business. That is why your second job is to make your system measurable. And I want to be precise here because this is not about dashboards no one looks at or spreadsheets that take a day to actually update. It is about a short list of numbers 3, 6, in my business, it was 8. Numbers that, when you look at them on any day of the week, tell you exactly what is happening in the business right now. Pipeline, conversion rates, customer churn, time to hire, cost of an unfilled role, customer acquisition costs, revenue per head, attrition by team, numbers like that. You see, when you do not have this type of numbers, you are always reacting. You are managing the emergency in front of you, not actually the pattern that is underneath it. You find out in April that something went wrong in February, but by then you are fixing it under pressure instead of catching it before it actually hurts the business. When you have numbers, something shifts. You stop managing emergencies and start managing the business. It's like looking at your car display. You can see how fast you're going. You can see the revs. You can see how much fuel you have left. And you can see when the engine light flashes red. This also means you make decisions based on what is actually happening, not based on how last week felt. And here's the thing that does not go on slides. The numbers also make you harder to fool, including, well, by yourself. Because one of the quiet risks in business, in a growing company, is a founder who starts believing the same story that they're telling investors and actually stops checking it against reality. The data, though, does not care about narrative. It just tells you what is true. So build the damn dashboard. Keep it simple. Look at it every week without fail. The next one is the one I care about most, and it is the one where I see the most damage done to otherwise excellent businesses. Here's what usually happens. A founder builds the system. They get the numbers from that system. They have real clarity on what is working and what is not. And then they keep running it themselves because hiring feels risky, because the last hire did not work out and they would rather not go through the pain of that again. Because it is, well, simply faster to just do it yourself than to explain to someone else. And because somewhere underneath all of that, they're not completely sure the business would run the way they want it to run without them in the middle of it. So they stay. Every decision flows through them. Every escalation lands on their desk. And the business grows to a certain point and then it stops, it stalls. Not because the market dried up, not because the product stopped working, but because the CEO, because the founder became the ceiling. I have watched this happen at companies of 8 people, and I've seen it at companies of 120 people. The size does not actually matter here. The pattern is pretty much always the same, and it almost always traces back to the same root cause. The founder is treating hiring as a reactive task rather than a strategic move that gives them leverage. Most founders hire when they are desperate. The role has been empty too long, the work is out of control, someone just handed in their notice, and there's a hole that needs filling yesterday or ideally a month ago. They write the job description quickly, post it, interview a handful of people, and then pick the one who seemed most capable, is conveniently available, and is a family friend, only to then wonder 6 months later why it is not actually quite working out. That is not hiring. That is gambling with your business. Real hiring starts with a completely different question. Not what job title will they have, but what does success in this role actually look like? What would this person need to achieve in their first 6 months for you to look back and say, without a question, that was the right hire? When you can answer that clearly before you ever post the role, before you even speak to a candidate, everything else falls into place. You know what you are looking for, you know what to ask in interviews, you know what evidence actually matters versus what just feels impressive in an interview setting. You are not guessing anymore. You are testing. And when you get it right, something magical happens that most founders do not actually anticipate. You get your time back, not just the hours you were spending on the work itself, but the mental load, the context switching, the low level anxiety that comes from knowing that if you actually step away from the business, something will break, something will blow up. All of it is all of a sudden transferred to someone who is better positioned to carry it than you are. That is when the business actually starts to grow past you. Not because you worked harder, but because you finally stopped being the bottleneck. That is what all successful businesses are based on: the people. Now, I have an AI tool called Klareda that I use with every founder I work with for exactly this part of the process. You can access it free via the link in the description. But first, let's talk about the fourth job of CEOs. And this one might make you a little bit uncomfortable. Most leadership content gives you a soft version of this. Read more, find a mentor, invest in your well-being. Take care of yourself so you can take care of the business. And none of that is actually wrong. But it is soft enough that most people nod along happily, feel vaguely motivated for about 20 minutes, and then go back to Tuesday exactly as it was. So let me say it differently. Right now, the limit on your business is you, not your market, not your team, not the economy. The specific version of you that is running this business today with the habits you currently have, the beliefs you are carrying, the blind spots that nobody around you has the standing to actually bring to your attention. That version of you is the ceiling. That's the ceiling of the business. The skills that got you here are not the same skills that will take you to where you need to go. That is not a cliche either. It is a structural fact about how companies grow. The CEO running a 200-person company is genuinely a different person to the founder who built it to 20. Not necessarily smarter, not luckier, but more self-aware, more willing to say, I don't know, and mean it instead of saying it while already having an answer in their head. And here's the failure mode I see most often. The founder who was very good at building the early business becomes so identified with that version of themselves that they actually resist becoming the next version that the business needs. Because the next version requires admitting that some of what made them successful so far is now exactly the thing slowing the business down. That is a hard pill to swallow. I know, I've been there. But the business cannot grow past the person leading it. And if you are not actively working on yourself with the same seriousness you bring to your product or your revenue, you will quietly become the problem that nobody can solve. Okay, so let me pull these four together for you because the sequence actually matters. You see, first you build the system because without it, there is nothing actually worth scaling. Then you make it measurable because without the data, you are actually managing on feeling, and that actually eventually catches up with you. Then you hire the team because the system only becomes a real business when the right people are running it without you at the center of every decision. And then you work on yourself continuously because you are the one variable in this equation that does not have a replacement. Now, notice where hiring sits in all this. It's not the foundation, nor is it the afterthought. It's right in the middle, as the thing that turns a working system into a growing business. Get the hiring wrong and you will be back to being the bottleneck within 6 months, probably less, regardless of how clean the system is or how sharp the numbers look. Get it right, and you have built something that can grow faster than you can personally move. And that is the whole game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, linked here.